Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel. James here as ever for today's very important ACCA video, especially if you've got your upcoming corporate and business law, that's the LW or F4 examination. In today's video, I'm going to take you through the External Examiner's Report for 2020, and this is going to help you in your preparation for your exam, regardless of which edition you're actually doing. So the actual document I'm going to be reviewing is the actual English paper, but the tips and tricks I go through in this video are going to help, and I'm going to take a breath here on Botswana, Cyprus, Hong Kong, Ireland, Lesotho, Malta, Malaysia, Russia, Singapore, Vietnam, South Africa, and finally Zimbabwe. So make sure you watch all the way to the end, pen and paper at the ready, because these tips are what I would actually be looking to implement if I had to do this exam myself. If this is the first time you visited my channel, my name is James. I'm an ACCA qualified member from the UK, and on my YouTube channel I help out ACCA students around the world with my experience to help you pass your upcoming examinations, because my channel is 100% student-led and I dedicate all my videos to my subscribers and followers and ACCA students in general who just want a bit of help around the world. And I always give them a lovely shout out. So on my Instagram, I posted out the other day as to should I do a law paper, should I do a financial management one? And as you can see from the screenshots, there was uproar. So I know, Mohammed, you're out there watching. Thank you very much for leaving me a message on there as well. And I've got loads of respondents who are requesting this video, so it's dedicated to you. And of course, for my loyal subscribers out there, I have to give a shout out today to Pakistan. I mean, anyone who's watching from Pakistan, I hope the video helps. But right, hello James, I went to the ACCA site to get some past papers, but it was requiring me to select a version for the F4 paper. Okay, I'm currently studying the actual English paper. Brilliant. Well, this video is definitely going to help you on here, but I don't find any option listed in the menu there. What should I do? Well, do not worry, I've got you covered. What I've done for you is I've put the actual link to access the External Examiner's Report to help you out with the English paper or whichever paper you're doing in the description of this video. Just click it, it's going to take you straight onto there, and you'll also find the past papers on there that you can access for free as well. I mean, happy days all round. Well, as I said, it is 100% student-led, so feel free to subscribe to the channel. I mean, you get access to all my free resources, but the main thing is if you know someone who's got the law exam coming up, this video is really going to help them. So make sure you copy and paste it and send it over to them. It is definitely going to help with the notes and the tips and tricks we're going to go through. If you've got any requests of other videos you'd like me to do, whether that's law or whichever exam it may be, just leave me a comment below. I answer absolutely all of them. And as ever, whilst you're down there, make sure you give it a massive like and thumbs up so that ACCA students around the world can see this content. That's the main thing. Finally, I also get requests about, James, what sort of books would you actually recommend? Which ones would you purchase? Well, I've done the work for you. If you click the links in the description for this video below, those would be the recommended texts that I would be buying if I had to do this exam again. Right, without any further ado, make sure you click that link. I'm going to head on to the main screen now, pen and paper at the ready, and let me walk and talk you through it. Well, 3, 2, 1, and go! Okay then, so if you've clicked the link in the description, as I said, this is the document that you'll have access to, the External Examiner's Report. This is the English law version. Select whichever one you are doing specifically and follow the tips all the way through, because they're definitely going to help you to actually pass this examination. And as you can see on here, we've got loads of information provided by the External Examiner. Nice little breakdown of Section A and Section B with a conclusion on there with a few examples. But I can hear you from the other side of the screen going, James, hang on, this doesn't look too appealing. I mean, where are your insights? Where are these tricks and hacks that that the subscribers want to see? I mean, how are you going to help us out? Would I let you down? Now, I'm at the bottom. All the important stuff's above me up at the top. So make sure you get it jotted down as we go through. I'm just going to try and keep it as clear and concise as possible. Make sure you stay to the end. Get down as much as possible, as I said, and it's definitely going to help you out. Well, first of all, if you're not aware already, it's a 2-hour examination for 100 marks. So you've got to be working to 1.2 minutes per mark, We're going to be going through the breakdown of Section A and Section B. In fact, you can probably see it on the side over here. 85% pass rate, as I said, on average. Some good years, some bad years. But throughout this document, they're going to be talking about the strengths and the weaknesses with constructive advice. In other words, where if students actually fail this exam, and if you read and watch this video through to the end, you're going to pick up on those tips, get them written down in your notes, and it's really going to help you out to pass. So let's start off with the actual general comments on here. So if you haven't got it written down already, get down for Section A as a guide that you should be spending 84 minutes. So that's 1.2 minutes per mark, giving us 84 minutes on there. And when it hits 84 minutes, you've got to move on to Section B, because Section B is classed as the harder of the two sections. Section B, you should be spending 36 minutes. I think you could probably do 80 minutes on Section A and give yourself 4 more minutes in the bank for Section B. So giving yourself 40 overall. But again, it's completely up to you. The examination's broken down, as we've just said, into Section A and Section B, if this is the first time you're looking into the law exam. And Section A has 25 2-mark questions that are a bit harder than the 20 1-mark questions in that area of the sections. And that gives us overall the 70 marks, which we've reconciled on the side. Section B, on the other hand, has 5 scenario-based analysis questions, each for 6 marks each, just so you get a bit of a better breakdown of how it's laid out for you. But the key thing on here is all questions are compulsory, and the exam, as we said, is 2 hours, so you can't question spot. The external examiner will tell you later on as well that they can test absolutely anything. You go from things that are sort of general knowledge that you can pick up in the core text, and then it goes all the way to the details and specifics that you need to be picking up on. So let's keep it going through so that you can get down as many notes as possible. So I'm underlining, and if this is the first video you're watching of mine, I only underline and address the key aspects that come up as, for me, in my areas of expertise and being a tutor now, what the external examiner is trying to tell you, and we read between the lines on this. So as a fully based examination format, this is where we have objective marking. So in other words, a computer will be marking your paper. So this is where it's really key to get written down that they may ask for which of the 2 answers are correct, or which 2 of the following are not true. And if you only put 1, then you're not going to have an opportunity to get the full marks on it on there, okay? So just be aware of that. You have knowledge-based questions, so that's really coming from those core texts. But these are the key words you need to be aware of. We've got analysis and application. If you have a look at my syllabus review video, the external examiner talks about analysis and application relating to the 2 markers in Section A and Section B, and these are deemed to be the more trickier areas. So I've broken it down there that Section A is more knowledge-based and Section B is the analysis and application going into more detail, because it's more scenario-based as a result. So just so you understand how it's going to be laid out to help you. So comments relating about the actual Section A performance. So this is based on past sittings from students. So candidates fared better in this section for Section A because you've got those little 1 markers on there. And the external examiners pointed out the 1 mark questions tended to be answered better than the more complex 2 mark questions. So see the syllabus areas below, as we've talked about, for which areas you could be tested on for these 1 and 2 markers. And in your actual question practice before the exam, make sure you don't put off those 2 markers and also Section B, because the more knowledge you build up for this law exam, the better off you tend to do. But I have written on the side there, silly mistakes cost marks in the LW F4 exam. And the reason for that is that people don't read the requirement, read the question properly, understand what sort of scenario it's based on, or which particular law it's referring to. And that is where they misinterpret it. And then you also have the answers that are completely not right at all that they fall for. So we'll come on to that later on. Don't want to give the game away on it. But if you just get written down in your notes, James says, make sure I read the question properly and understand what's going on. If you start to get that into your habits when going through the law paper, you've got a really good chance of passing, and you're not going to make those silly mistakes on here. So the full document's here for you to read through in great detail. I'm going to go through the key areas that I highlighted. So there is nothing to be gained in question or topic spotting, as we said. So in other words, maybe trying to say that, oh, employment law didn't come up on last year's exam. Well, it could come up on any year's exam, as the external examiner has written this, as all aspects of the syllabus can be examined in one exam. So the 8 areas, as you can probably just about see to the side of me in the syllabus, that I want you to get written down, we're coming on to that in a moment, you could be tested on all of them. Okay, that is the critical thing going away from this video that you are aware of. So there are still some issues in section A that are far from unproblematic, although at least superficially more straightforward than questions in section B. So in other words, students still actually struggle on section A, should I say, but not as much as section B. So maybe put your focus onto section B, because again, think about it psychologically, that could be the difference between those little few marks that push you into the 50 plus. So some questions prove particularly problematic for the simple reason that they are very detailed, so specific level of knowledge. So they've actually got a few examples on here that we're actually going to run through, but when you're going through your core text, just get this written down. Yes, you've got to know the general principles of what goes on within law jurisdictions, wherever you're sitting your exam, but you've also got to know the specifics as to, well, what area is the question actually wanting me to answer for? And once you get into that mindset of being really specific, then you should pick up on more marks as a result. Now, as we go through, we'll come on to question 1 in a moment. I just want you to get down the syllabus areas on there from A to H. So these are absolutely fundamental areas that you need to be really confident on going into the exam. So you've got the essential elements of the legal system, the law of obligations, employment law, the formation and constitution of business organisations, capital and financing of companies, management, administration and the regulation of companies, insolvency law, and we've got corporate fraudulence and criminal behaviour. So this is where you've got to be checking them off one by one, getting some note sheets on there that if you're doing a question and you had no idea what it related to, pick out which of the 8 areas it actually focused on and then get it written down so you'll retain that knowledge a lot better. But there's a few examples on here, and again, treat it as maybe question practice, so have a little go yourself before you have a look at the answers. But I thought I'd just run you through a few of them, just to give you a feel what the actual computer-based exam would actually be like. So as you can see on here, question 1, in relation to statutory interpretation, so we've seen that before, for out of the 8 areas, which 2, notice how it's in capitals, so get that jotted down, capitals in the question, of the following statements are true. So we've got judges have the power to ignore statutes that are now out of date. Judges must decide cases in accordance with statutes, however old they may be, or might be, should I say. The modern approach is for judges to ignore the words of the statute and instead look at the reason for the statute being enacted. And then finally, judges may presume that a statute does not alter existing law unless it expressly states it does. So you've got 4 options on there, and you've got to pick out 2 of the following statements that are true as a result on here. And this is where the external examiner's report is really helpful, because it actually breaks it down for you, identifying the key words and saying what is actually correct. So the question demonstrates the need to read the question very closely and not to work on the basis of any assumed understanding. So number 2 and number 4 are correct on there, but the other wrong, distractors. Now, I've written keyword on here. I'm just going to give you a moment, get that written down for the keyword. That is the key thing, because this is where certainly plausible, but would be likely to confuse unprepared candidates. So distractors are there to actually put you off from actually getting the right answer because they don't relate into it particularly much at all. Okay, so that's one of the key things on here. 1 is incorrect, and this is where you need to start to get it through in your actual analysis as you're looking through it. 1 is incorrect for the simple reason that judges have no such authority, and the correct situation is that provided in option 2, that judges are bound by statutes no matter how out of date they may be. That is the key thing there. If you want to get it written down, no matter how out of date they may be, the judges are bound to these statutes. That's a key thing that it's been tested on here, and it will come up again. Option 3 is particularly subtle on there, as initially it does not appear to be an accurate statement of the modern purposive purposive, there you go, James, approach to statutory interpretation. However, 2 is wrong for the reason that judges are not empowered simply to ignore the words of the statutes. So get that jotted down there. I probably should have highlighted that. So that judges are not empowered simply to ignore words of statutes. That's the key element on here. Even if they think they are inaccurate or inappropriate, so they can't do anything about it, in other words. That only leaves option 4, so this is where elimination comes into it, which correctly states that one of the presumptions of statutory interpretation on there, so that judges may presume that a statute does not alter existing law unless it expressly states that it does. So you can start to see the actual detail that they're going into here, but trying to eliminate, picking up on those distractors, as we said, will really help you to actually identify that. And as you can see here, the sun is slightly coming into the office, but we carry on regardless. Now, I've got the actual note on the side here for specific knowledge, but as you can see, it's in relation to the 2 types of legislation. So again, one of those 8 areas that we touched on earlier. Which of the following describes the effect of codifying legislation? So in other words, the process of collecting and restating the law of a jurisdiction in certain areas. Okay, so it's going to come with practice, especially if this is the first time you watched a video on it, as to what it all sort of means. And the 3 options as we have on here again. So it puts case law into statutory form. So statutory is the key word. Why we pick 1 or 2? Because it's actually binding. But let me take it through so you can see the difference between 1 and 2. So it puts legislation from a number of sources, so kind of on the same lines, into a single piece of legislation. So you've got single piece of legislation versus statutory form that will be binding and to be implemented on there. Versus number 3, it gives authority to a particular body to make a new law, which is, again, is obviously wrong. It's as you can see here from what the external examiner said, option 3 should be obviously wrong to the well-prepared candidate, but raises issues around the law of commission for a less well-prepared candidate. But again, once again, the correct answer is not immediately apparent because when I'm trying to walk and talk it through, they almost sound the same with the same outcome. But it was all about that key word of statutory and how it will be binding. That's the key thing as I put on here, but only option 1 is always true in relation to the legal English system on here, or English legal system, should we say, James. So just check whatever rules and regulations apply to your particular examination, as they're going to be different around the world, aren't they? But it's just to give you a little feel that even if the English paper is not the one you're doing, these are the specifics that you need to be aware of for your particular paper. Now, coming on to question 3 here, and this is where it goes into a bit more detail and scenario based. So this would be more sort of section B if you want to get that written down, where we have Steve needs planning permission to extend his business premise. So trying to picture what's going on. His friend David is a local councillor. Steve wants David to use his influence to obtain the planning permission. Okay, right. Steve offers David a weekend at a luxury hotel if he gets the planning permission. So automatically I wrote bribery example on there. But you were asked, what is the legal position in terms of the Bribery Act of 2010? Okay, so this is where you've got different approaches on it, but I just looked through the answers straight away. And again, you can have your own approach. I'm going to walk and talk you through. Where we've got Steve is committing the offence, Steve is not committing any offence, Steve is committing the offence, and Steve is not committing the offence. So first things first, note down how they haven't actually ordered it, the committing are together and the not committing are together, so don't make the mistake on there. We only have one potential answer on here, so that is the key thing as a result. And I've just realised this is a 2-mark question, so this would be actually in section A on here. So this goes into, these are the more detailed ones as a result. So this is where we have to be careful. What are we actually looking for? Well, the first question I asked myself, first of all, to decide, is he committing an offence or not? That is the key thing. Well, if he's offering the actual luxury weekend, if he gets the planning permission, Steve is committing the actual offence of bribing another person on here. But let's just walk it through. And also, I'm going to have to ping ACCA an email because there's a typo. That 3 should be a 4 on there because options 2 and 4 are unlikely to apply because he's not committing an offence on there. So this is where we've got options 1 and 3 as we go down on here. So in this case, a well-prepared student will provide the correct answer. Okay, lovely. They'll know that 2 and 4 will not apply, as we've said on there. Okay, so Steve is not committing an offence while he's trying to bribe him, right? So I've got down there, just eliminate first of all. So it's like with the, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? It's sort of 50-50, isn't it? We've only got 2 options now. So the friend David is a local councillor, a public official, and there is certainly an offence of bribing going on. But this is the key element for the specifics, which really differentiates if you're a well-prepared student that's going to get the 2 marks versus someone who knows general information that could have a go at it. But say a public official in the Bribery Act of 2010. But the Act specifies that such an official must be foreign, which is not the case in this situation because he's the actual local councillor. So option 3 is the correct answer as a result. So Steve is not committing the offence of bribing another person because a public official is deemed to be, okay, specifies such an official must be foreign as a result. So again, it just goes into more specifics. That's a really specific detail on there as to it. But this is the expectation of watching this video, going away from it that you go, oh my word, I've really got to get myself together to understand this in a lot more detail. Coming on to question 4 now, so we've got which of the following must be sent to company's registry when registering a charge. And first of all, you've got to know the details of what that actually entails. So a charge is the security a company gives for a loan. So just to give you a bit more detail around it, and an example of this is a sort of a mortgage as a result, okay? So involving the actual company. So much of the syllabus of corporate and business law is knowledge-based, as we've been talking through, and candidates must expect to be tested on their extent of their knowledge. So you can't just pick out of those 8 topics 5 or 6. You've got to be going through all 8. They could come up. So this particular question may be difficult, but is nonetheless fair and serves to differentiate candidates. In other words, have you learned it or have you not? The correct answer, which cannot be worked out but must be known, is option 1 as a result. So the instrument by which is evidence. So the instrument, such as the actual, this is where the mortgage deed proves the existence of the actual mortgage example between a property and the company and the actual charge they're being implemented. Whereas if we have a look at 2, 3 and 4, so we've got the rate of interest on the debt is secures. Well, that's the agreement of the company on there, that's just the rate. The current value of the property to which it applies, but the mortgage deed itself gives us evidence of the existence of the property and the instrument. And then the name of the person responsible for its creation. Well, the company's registry is going to already have all of your details. So that was a distractor again to really put you off to try and think about, well, can we prove the person? Well, we're already going to have your details anyway. So again, just a few more examples as we go through. We've got question 5 on here. Again, notice how which 2 of the following statements apply to streamlined company registration. So, i.e., I've just put it there, are true about the process. In other simple words in here. We've got 4 different options on there. 2 and 4 are correct on there. Oh, hang on. Yeah, sorry, 2 and 3 are correct, shall I say. Here, knowledge of detailed procedures. So going into a lot more particular detail. And if you want to get down my little notes on the side there, I'll walk and talk it through for you. So here, knowledge of detailed procedures is required. However, the question does provide a useful reminder that all aspects of the syllabus are examinable. Another warning from the external examiner, and that the full syllabus will be covered over time. So again, they're trying to get it across to you. The more you go through this exam, the better the chance you have of passing. So which 2 of the following statements apply to streamlined company registration? So if you're going to register a company, the streamlined company registration rules apply only to small companies. Well, I just put, well, what about large companies? So that can't be right straight away. The information required to register a company and information required by HMRC will be submitted to the relevant authorities at the same time. Well, yes, absolutely spot on. I used to do this in my old role, using Companies House on here, whichever it may be. So completely agree with you on there. The registration information will be provided to the relevant authorities in digital form only. Yes, it is. So you can use accounting software or you can do it directly on HMRC's website, but it's all an online process now. And then finally, for the final option on here, where you just go, no, that cannot possibly happen. A company applying for registration is permitted to lodge the required information in paper form to both Companies House and to HMRC. So no, it's all an online process now. I think you can still do in 2021 a paper tax return, but the dates when it has to be in are so specific now for it. But for a company that's going to be trading potentially across the UK or multinationally, all online for all the details on there. But again, it just comes with knowledge as you go through. So you've got finally on here question 6, in accordance with the money laundering regulations. So again, another wide topic that we're being asked to have some knowledge on as a result. Which of the following statements concerning the requirement to perform client due diligence is not correct? So what I've wrote mindset there, this is really key to help you out. So as I'm reading this through, I'm now thinking to myself, one of these is not correct. So 3 of them must be correct on there. So in other words, what should happen? And it was number 1 on this as a result. So the correct answer here is option 1. But the inherent difficulty of dealing with the detail of the question, as commented on previously, is compounded in this instance by the negative structure of the question, so picking up on not. So we've got on here, client due diligence must be performed before a business relationship comes to an end. Well, it should be done before you actually engage with the client overall, because why would you actually accept to go into business and trade or deal or whatever it may be with this client overall? Because you should do your due diligence at the start before you even sign an engagement contract with them. And that was the real red flag for me. Any person acting on behalf of a client must be identified and their identity verified. Well, completely agree there because of potential conflicts of interest. Client due diligence must be conducted for a one-off company formation. Well, of course, because that's where they may be going from a sole trader and then forming a limited company. So are they actually going to be applicable? Have they had any issues with HMRC? Have they got any outstanding payments? Is there any fraud allegations against them? Of course we've got to do that. Enhanced due diligence must be performed where there is high risk of money laundering. Well, of course, if there's risk of money laundering, that means the risk is going up and more potential funds could be lost. So in other words, we're going to have to do more due diligence to actually cope with the actual risk. So that's just trying to give you a few insights as to say, well, how could that possibly not be correct? And then just getting into that critical mindset to go through it as well. So that nicely brings us overall for section A. Stay with me, stay to the end on here because we've got little bits on section B. Final page, we're nearly there. And this is where we come on to section B, performance. And just to be crystal clear, if you want to get it written down, these are multitask questions, so all sort of example and scenario based. You've got 5 6-mark questions, 30 marks. It should be 36 minutes, give or take, but it's up to you. I'd maybe go 40 because get this written down. These are all about analysis and application. And the external examiner has even written it down for you. Skills traditionally candidates have found difficult, so I recommend that you give yourself a bit more time because these are more detailed questions. So this is particularly, and make sure you have this down, legal principles and concepts. Answers cannot be provided without underlying knowledge. So if you don't know your stuff, you're most likely going to get it wrong. Candidates should focus on the specific issues raised again. Whew, gosh, I mean, they keep highlighting it for us, but I've given you a little time strategy as we had at the start, but you can sort of alter it if you want. Maybe go 80, as I said, for section A, 40 minutes for section B, so it gives you a bit more chance to actually analyse what is going on in this question. Nicely coming on to the actual conclusion here and any sort of final words of wisdom that I can give to you as well. We'll start on a positive, that the overall performance has improved, which is quite nice. But again, the external examiner is highlighting for you right at the end of the document. And the reason why I do this is because it's one of the last things you'll read and it will stay in your mind more critically. That all aspects of the syllabus, again, can be examined, and it's imperative that candidates study all topics in the syllabus in order to be successful in the exam. They've told you once, they've told you twice, and they've told you a third time. Oh my word, the ball is in your court. But this is where I've put down at the bottom, and this is directly from the actual syllabus on here, as to, well, on successful completion of the exam, so this is what the external examiner has written for students, which not all of them are aware. Read, James. It's been a long day. But on successful completion of the exam, candidates should be able to, and you've got the A to H on here, that again, feel free to get it written down, screenshotted, everything from the essential elements on there, legal rules, employment relationships, constitutions. These are the key words that we've seen throughout this document. It's in the study syllabus video that I've done as well, but I just couldn't live with myself if I didn't let you to get that down. It's going to be one of the key elements on here. Final tips I would say going into this exam, if you've got it tomorrow or next week, whatever it may be, I'd be looking to try and do section A and then give yourself a bit of time to clear your mind and then reread going back through and have a look, but staying really strict to time moving on. The more question practice you do, computer-based, using workbooks, question practice, whatever format you've got, make sure you're doing them all and writing down areas that you got wrong, because it's all a learning process, understanding the general terms and then the specifics, linking it to scenarios as well. And if you follow that with all of the tips of the videos and the other videos on my channel, I think you've got a really good chance of getting into that 85% that will pass this exam. Right, well, let's head back onto the main screen then. On 3, 2, 1, go! Wow, that is how you analyse an ACCA External Examiner's report from head to toe, with insights, with tips, with hacks that could be the difference between you passing your upcoming law exam and making that little difference to get you that 50 plus. If you have found today's video helpful, which hopefully you have with all those notes and insights as I said, make sure you give it a massive thumbs up and like. That's you, Pakistan. I'm sure you're watching out there, and everyone who actually commented on my Instagram story. I really appreciate the feedback and I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, let me know in the comments below, or any other videos you would actually like me to record myself so it helps you out. And finally, whilst you're down there, make sure you actually subscribe so you get access to all of my free materials, so that you can share this with any of your friends, because you know it could be the difference between getting that pass, getting that 50 plus, and then moving on to your next ACCA exam as well. Well, finally, the last thing I can say is best of luck with your upcoming examination. What I've done for you as a small treat at the end here, I've linked you a couple of my other videos. If you watch them, they're going to give you more study tips that are going to help you and could be, again, the difference to just getting those last few marks and passing your upcoming corporate and business law exam. But as always on that bombshell, I'll see you next time. Cheers!